comes another big boil over. Equine athleticism at its best. The king is in the castle once more. This is in one race. The rest are almost in another postcode. She is a star with a capital S. It's going to be a triple treat, a miracle three-peat. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed history here at Menangle. What about that? It's getting right up on the sprint lane and it's going to bolt in.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Sprint Lane podcast. Welcome to the show. Jess Watkins, Freddie Hastings, and our special guest this morning, Dave Wonson. Welcome, guys.
Great to be here.
Good to be here.
Fantastic to be launching the Sprint Lane as a podcast. Obviously, it's a project that we've wanted to pour some energy into for a little time. Actually, COVID got in the way initially. All this gear's been in action now for well over a year. COVID got in the way, but here we are, and we've put the all-star team together. Pretty exciting to have you guys.
Well, it's good to be here. It's good to have a real star here in the show. I'm surrounded by, it's like a constellation.
Yeah, great to have David Wonson with us. We'll get to one in a sec. Hey, it's been a big week in the world, hasn't it? Obviously, the sad passing of the Queen. Got any royal stories, Jess? I see you got the pen there.
Yeah, I've definitely got my pen here with the jewel in the crown and the English flag. But yeah, no royal stories for me.
Freddie, you're the king of Menangle, surely.
No, the king of Menangle was king of swing, and I got to call him many times. So that's my biggest brush with royalty, king of swing.
Well, we've got the king here with us.
Yeah, the king.
I don't know about that. No, I don't have any royal stories. Well, none that I can say here in the podcast anyway, Paul. So we'll leave those stories to the green room.
I've got one. I actually have got a photo at home with the new king himself, with Prince Charles. Just me and the king. The story goes, I was working in England. I was over there playing cricket, and I got a job working for the police force. Now, we had the chief constable. He's the head honcho of the police force, and we had this event. And because of his links to the Agricultural Society and the county that I was in, the chief constable said, I need a photo with the Prince Charles at the time. And I said, righto. So all day I'm sort of navigating around the paparazzi trying to get a photo with the bloke. But he kept sort of staying, he didn't want it to be too obvious. So all day I'm sort of doing this sort of jiggling act trying to get a photo. Well, then he came back. When all the paparazzi left, he came back and met everyone. So we're sort of lined up, and he came along and he said, oh, hello. And I spoke to him, and obviously with an Australian accent, I sort of probably stood out. And he said, oh, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm here to play cricket. And he moved to the next person, and I had a camera with me, and I thought, this is too good an opportunity to pass. Gave it to the next person, and straight away I just said, hey, mate, any chance I can get a photo? The boys back home will love this. And he had no choice. He literally, and the photo's like this stunned mullet, Prince Charles, and me and him standing there. So, hey, it had pride of place. I got it printed up as a canvas, but it's got a hole in it. So I don't know what we read into that. But let's hope that there's a successful reign ahead for our new King Charles III.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a story.
Big
Hey, mate,
week.
did you actually say, hey, mate? And
I did, actually. It's probably my cringe moment of my time abroad. But anyway.
Wasn't protocols.
no.
No. Hey, we were going to have Robbie Morris in the room, but I think he pulled an alpha move on you during the week, Freddie, and I think he's pulled another alpha move on you by not turning up. Heaven on high. And what I was going to do straight away was address the elephant in the room if Robbie was here, because your horse, the Wonder Horse Heaven on High, got rolled.
Oh, geez, Wonder Horse is a bit rich, but no, look, he's a talented horse. He was having our second start for us in the heat of the carousel, and he was beaten half a neck. They came home in sub-27 for the longer trip. I think the lead time was 48, and they were pretty much 1-2 right throughout. Both very talented horses. They both arrived from New Zealand, the South Island, on the same flight, and arrived on the obviously same flight and went to different stables. Ours went to David Thorne, and Port-au-Prince went to the Morris barn at Lucky Lodge. In fact, Port-au-Prince, a little bit of trivia, is actually the capital of Haiti. And the French pronunciation, and I'll probably slaughter this, but it's Port-au-Pas. Port-au-Pas. Is how you say it with a French Port-au-Pas. Now, if I had called it that in the run, punters would have been scratching their head and saying, what's he on? But Port-au-Pas is how you say it if you were speaking about the capital of Haiti in the French accent. But we call him Port-au-Prince, and he's a pretty good horse. And he draws barrier 1 under the preferential draw system. Will be competitive. It's a good field, and we'll obviously cover that a little bit later in the show.
Yeah. Obviously nothing to be discouraged about there. Jess, how's your week been?
Yeah, pretty good. Just been entrenched in watching the royal coverage from the Queen's passing, and also a bit of finals footy as well there from the NRL.
And, of course, David Wonson's with us. Wano, we're going to pour some time a little bit later in the show into what you actually do here at Menangle. And I know you'll probably have a joke that'll say, I don't do much or whatever, but you're entrenched in making sure that this well-oiled machine of Club Menangle happens, and it really is the centrepiece of racing in this state, and there's so much racing that goes on. I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit more about that, and pour into your NRL career gone slightly askew there at some point.
Fortunately, we won't be speaking for too long about that. It was a good part of my life, good time in my life, all that, but this is what I always say this is what I was meant to do.
Freddie, you've had a good seat to see some really good racing here at Menangle over the past week. Obviously, we did touch on Porter Pile.
Port-au-Prince, close.
Yes. But as I said, Robbie Morris was going to be with us today. He'll be in action this afternoon. He had a pretty good week, and on the theme of Prince, the Black Prince, we saw the real Black Prince return.
Well, he's obviously getting organised for his defence of the Len Smith Mile title coming up in October. He really put the writing on the wall. I thought the week before, fresh up, it was a nice run, but he really was brave. He was really game on Saturday night, and Robbie has such a good affinity with this horse. And just coincidentally, we're in Carousel Week. The Black Prince is a former winner of a carousel back in 2018. So it goes to show the carousel is a good horse's race. And that's where the Black Prince, I guess, first hit the headlines as a nice horse when he won that carousel 4 years ago. And here he is. He's already a dual Group 1 winner and an obvious live chance leading into the Len Smith.
I think he's heading off to Victoria maybe just before that.
Oh,
he is looking at the Victoria. I think he is looking at the Victoria Cup after that victory on the...
He's a nice horse.
Yeah, and trained by one of the real good blokes in racing too, Roy Roots. I was fortunate I got to spend a bit of time with Roy in the lead up to the Inter-Dominion, and the story of the Black Prince I found really intriguing and a beautiful story. Paul Borg is a man who's so heavily invested in the racing industry here in New South Wales and basically said to Roy, I want to find a horse that's going to get me a start and a go in these good races, and Black Prince was the one that they identified. And, 2 Miracle Miles, a Len Smith Mile, Group 1 victories. It's been a real good journey for the ownership and the training
career so far.
Yeah. Jess, last week, I spoke to Jack Trainer here after we did some publicity work for the podcast last Tuesday. We talked about the Norm's Daughter race. He had 5 starters in that, and I said to him, well, which one? And he said, well, hopefully it's the one that I'm driving. Well, it ended up being that way, but geez, it was fingernail stuff there for Bravey Kelly, but what a performance.
It was. He definitely had strength in numbers there, and he managed to drive that winner as well. But he also trained the Quinella in that with Town Echo running second, and Jack Callaghan was behind her there. So, yeah, it was a great training performance, and we've seen Jack really do a great job with the mares so far this season.
He had a double on that card. So Robbie also had a winner at Menangle on Tuesday too. I'm rocking for Alex Alchin. Speaking of the Alchin name, Ricky Alchin, geez, he might have a good one there with Montalbano, Freddie.
He's always got good ones. So that's one thing with Rick. He doesn't have a massive team, but the horses, the quality certainly is outstanding. And Montalbano, he was very good 2 starts back, but last week he dominated and won by a massive margin. I think it was 20-plus metres. And he's just got a really nice stable around him, Rick, always does. And he'll be keen to win the trot on Saturday night, which we'll cover a bit later on, because if his horse can win the trot, Tough Monarch, he'll become the most winningest horse here at this track.
Yeah, it's illustrious companies there with Cash and Flow. He's been a great horse for him, Tough Monarch. He was a little bit slow in his career early on.
Oh, he could do things wrong.
Had some vices.
Yeah, especially near the 600.
Yeah,
he'd get to the 600, he'd want to skip and dance and prance, but now he's just a tradesman, isn't he? Mm-hmm.
It was a week of some really big margins, actually. If we have a look at Breeders' Challenge, obviously produced some great results. If we sort of go through some of them, we had Brooklyn Bridge for Ellen Bartley and Blake Jones down there in Albury. That was on Tuesday night in the Breeders' Challenge, 3-year-old Colts and Gallings. That was 16 metres. Spoon the Moon won the 3-year-old fillies heat there in Albury. Good drive from Rodney Coelho and obviously for David Kennedy, and he had 3 in that race. Flare Up at opposite Tamworth last Thursday. Brad Elder, beautiful drive on Flare Up, winner in the 3-year-old fillies heat. But the highlight, it was fantastic at Tamworth. There was a real buzz there because we saw some really good racing. And Leap to Fame in action there. I mean, you couldn't write a ticket for Leap to Fame. Went around at tomato sauce odds, but just got the cash. Only just scraped in, Jess.
Yeah, doesn't he look like a horse with the world of it at his feet? I think he's in for a really good end to the season, and especially in this Breeders' Challenge series. But also looking to next year when the Tab Eureka rolls into town, I think it'd be a really strong chance there.
Special mention to Tommy Ison because he, probably no one gave anything a chance other than Leap to Fame, but Teddy Disco nearly got the...
Wasn't much in it.
Yeah, nearly got the biscuits there, and it was a great drive from Tommy Ison, who is a star there in that northern region and up through the Hunters. So well done, Tommy. I was going to ask Robbie about Tim's a Trooper because obviously Tim's a Trooper came from nowhere in a lot of people's expectations through the Breeders' Challenge last year, but it was very good and ran third in that race. Captain Me at Penrith. Freddie, you were there for Jack Trainer.
Yeah, look, upset the apple cart, I guess, beating Madrid, who was the hot favourite. Captain Me in really good form, won the Oaks at Bankstown, the Oaks race that they put on at the end of August, and has just seemed to have just taken that next step. I think she's going to be certainly competitive. Whether she can, come here on the big track and upset some of the really good fillies, that's, time will tell. But she did everything she had to do on Thursday.
Yeah, obviously Madrid got rolled in that, probably a little bit unexpected. Then Cameron Hart, Jared Alchin duo turned up in the next race with My Ultimate Ronnie. That to me, when I watched it, I thought, this is Cameron saying, righto, you might have got past me last time, but it's not happening again, Dave. It felt like a really, really authoritative performance from My Ultimate Ronnie.
Hart, he is an up-and-coming superstar driver. They just run for him.
Cool.
And, he got beaten in the previous. That doesn't mean like he's going to sit back and sulk about that. He knew what his job was, and he was just going to make sure it was going to happen. So, and Jared's done a great job with all the My Ultimates. There's a lot of them. There's a few more going around this week. So, great team and partnership they're putting together between Cameron and Jared.
I was just talking to Jared before we came on air, actually, and he talked about My Ultimate Byron. He said, don't put a pen through My Ultimate Byron yet. He's come back pretty good.
He was a P last year. He was the standout.
Yep.
Maybe his form just wavered a little bit there at the end of the season because his first couple of runs, I think it was his first run here, Fred. It was like how good.
And then he went to Newcastle on Inter-Dominion Heat Night too, and he was very good there too. Yeah. So I mean, he's just
there.
But just back on Ronnie before we move on from Penrith. Unbelievable record at Penrith. Just has a real good record at that smaller track. So. And relishes racing here too, so he'll be very hard to toss through the series.
Last year through the 2-year-olds, there was this argument: which one's the better horse, but which one's going to come back as the better 3-year-old? And Jared's got a very high opinion of Ronnie. He thinks that Ronnie's potentially going to be a better.
I think Jared changed his mind about 3 times.
I know.
One was the best. It was Byron. Then all of a sudden, maybe this one. Oh, what about this one? And then one of the other ones, I can't remember. One, the Simpson, wasn't Byron was the favourite for that?
Baxter.
Yeah.
Yep.
So his opinion changed a few.
Yeah. So it'll be an interesting sort of narrative as to how those two come through that 3-year-old series and how they've come back. We talked about Cameron Hart. Look, if he was angry and disappointed in what happened in Madrid, he certainly made up for it. He went 4 in a row there on the back end of that
drove the quaddie. Drove the quaddie.
4 in a row.
Drove the quaddie. Races 5, 6, 7, 8.
And that's the second week in a row that he did that, because the week before at Penrith, he also drove 4 winners there. So an incredible achievement.
As a punter, when you're having a quaddie, you sort of think you get to the last week, he couldn't do that, could he?
Yeah.
So you're sort of maybe deviating away from thinking he's going to drive
law of averages.
What about the week before at Penrith? Hasn't been mentioned too much, but the first 7 races was won by the saddlecloth number 3. Every race, so the first 7 races was number 3, and you wouldn't believe it. Graham Watts had the favourite in the last race, odds on number 3, and it got rolled by David Ferrugia's horse. So
it would have been unbelievable. I don't think that would have ever happened anyway.
It was potentially going to be a case of all races, especially given the favourite was well into the tomato sauce. It was.
Have they got the winning percentages, barrier statistics out?
Well, I tell you what, stick with the 3 by the sound.
Yeah. I can tell you that number 4, and we've got a campaign coming up, Jess, with Club Menangle around the prevalence of number 4 winning. So
that might strike the budget a little
bit.
Yeah,
we'll have to hope
7
so.
times in one night.
That's a campaign, a great initiative around prostate cancer awareness, which will run through November. That the harness racing industry's been a huge supporter of, particularly Club Menangle, and major supported Tabcorp. So. other races that have been going on around the week. We were at Newcastle yesterday. Really impressed with the driver, Brian Portelli. He had 2 winners there. He drove Foxy Data, probably one of the more impressive winners of the day. At Bathurst, we had a lot of the Metro drivers out at Bathurst during the week. We saw Mahomes do really well out there. Jack Trainer had a double. Huge winner in the last. We talk about some space jobs that have happened during the week. Absolute mile victory. Isabel Ross drove a first starter splash at Crimson for Amanda Turnbull. 53 metres was the margin. You've seen plenty of races, Freddie. That's got to be as big as a margin as we're going to see.
Big, especially on that track. You sort of understand if you get those sort of margins at this track here, where a horse can hit high speed and just run away from them. And at Bathurst, it's not quite the same length of straight and still won by 53. So it'll be a very interesting horse to see it transition.
I think Heaven on High won by
31. I think it was 31.3. Let's not forget that point.
Wasn't 53. I'll tell you what, if that 53 hadn't happened, I reckon we'd be talking about Mitch Turnbull. He won on Lexi Girl for his dad Steve at Cowra on Sunday. 41 metres that one, but that just feels like a photo nail biter, doesn't it, compared to what Isabel and Amanda turned out. Newcastle on Friday. Again, I've noted down that Robbie had a winner with Dan Fernando there, but a good afternoon of racing at Newcastle on Friday. And the heats of the Hawkesbury to Hunter were on too. Grace Pinella picked up one of those, part of a driving double. She's a star in her own right. Grace Pinella really doing great things.
Absolutely. Of course, little sister of Lauren Tritton, who is a star in her own right, driving winners I'll
tell you what, Freddie, I can see that Lauren and Shane are online on our live Facebook feed. So, hi, guys. Little shout out to you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying the show, and please stay with us. Plenty to get through in this show. It's exciting to have this format. Look, if there are some little technical flaws, you got to bear with us. This is a new adventure for us, but hopefully everything's coming through fine. And really,
we're in harness racing. We're used to flaws.
We've got every faith in you, Paul. You're driving the Starship Enterprise by the look of it.
It's a great bit of kit. We've just got to make sure that that it's all going out.
Our job's easy, just talking into the mic. Paul's got all the
pressure. We had some pressure earlier when the video wasn't coming through, so if we were slightly late to anyone on the live stream, that's potentially why, but hopefully we got there in the end. If we have a look at what's coming up, Cowra is this Sunday, Carnival of Cups, the start of the Carnival of Cups schedule. I think it's a really great thing that we take these good races and these good feature meetings out of the country, Dave.
Yeah, look, this club's very supportive of that. What was called the Country Series is the Waratah Series now. This club's put a lot of money into them over the years. We look at those feature races. So Cowra will have a Waratah heat. They're really important to, I suppose, the areas themselves. The areas, and it's great to see the locals get behind these meetings. Like once upon a time they were here and there, and they might have 4 or 5 non-tab meetings and stuff like that, but these are on Sky One now. They're feature race meetings. The areas get behind them. They get good crowds, and it's great prize money.
Yeah,
incredible prize money that's been offered at these Country Cup meetings.
I've been very lucky during my career to have gone to several of the Carnival of Cup races, places like Blaney. I've done a Cowra meeting. I've been to Orange a few times when the old Orange track would.
Ugara's back this year.
That's right, the Canola Cup. So and they will be incredibly well patronised. The people love it. It is the most incredible atmosphere. And we were talking a little earlier about a now defunct racetrack that we both frequented when we were younger, Nowra. It's where I started calling races, and you spent a lot of time there with your dad, and those country racetracks, they are just so full of atmosphere. Love it.
It's the heartbeat. It's the heartbeat of harness racing.
Absolutely.
It's great. They can aspire to win a big race here.
Yeah.
That's where it starts from.
Yeah, and special mention of Darryl and Rosalie Davis. Jack and Alicia there at the Cowra Club. I had dinner with them a couple of weeks ago. I was doing a road trip around the state to get out and meet with all these clubs ahead of the Carnival of Cups, and they had a meeting in June. It's a quirky roster they've got. They had the last one on the previous rotation in June, and now they've got the first one September 18. So what you're going to see to people tuning in, and I really do encourage anyone to get to these tracks if you can, because you're going to see a whole new branding roll out at Cowra this Sunday. We've completely flipped everything on its head. You're going to see this pop of colour. We want to put the word carnival back into Carnival of Cups. You're going to see a lot of flags. The hats are hugely popular among the race goers out there, and particularly the club patrons who invest their time as volunteers to help out these clubs. So you're going to see the hats, there's t-shirts. You're going to see we've got some stubby coolers as well. What we're going to do in the next couple of days is start rolling out some photos of some of our leading drivers wearing the shirts, because they've come up really well.
Paul, don't underestimate the power of a free hat.
Yes.
We have the winning owners room here, and they win carousels. They win $30,000 and $50,000 races, and the first thing they ask for, have you got one of those winners' hats?
Yep.
I go, don't worry about the 20,000 you've just won. You've got to get a winner's hat.
Yeah,
So don't underestimate that.
they love it.
Okay.
On Cowra, there was just a really good feel among the committee and the town that they're progressing in the right direction, and they're bringing in some new initiatives. I think you might see some dash-hound races there at Cowra on Sunday, which I know they're not the first club to do that, but they've been hugely popular at other clubs as well. I'm excited about what Cowra's going to do. And then you're right, Wano, it then does roll into Yagara in a couple of weeks. I know Jodie Greenold, she's such a tireless worker for that club. She does amazing things. And when I met with her, she was so, I guess, driven by coming up with something new and original. And I said to Jodie, you haven't been on for a few years. You've got such a great reputation in this town for putting on a good show. Everything old is new again. So don't stress yourself, because they really do put on a great show there at the Cowra Carnival of Cups race meeting. And that's one that I know they're super excited about bringing back after a couple of unfortunate COVID-19 enforced layoff years.
They had a flood one year too.
They did. They got
to that.
incredible rainfall one day, washed them out. They've just had no luck in the last probably 3 years, and it is one, without differentiating between the other race clubs that host Carnival of Cups. The Yagara Carnival of Cups was just an incredibly big and very, very popular carnival.
Yeah.
Hostess with the mostess.
Yeah. Oh, they used to pack the joint out on the Sunday for a function there, and everyone used to go and have a drink and a good time, and then they'd hit the races, and it was just a sea of colour.
Yeah, it should be fantastic. Some really good things that we saw through the week. One to mention was at Cowra. I saw a race finish there. I think it was the second last race. Michael Darmacy was calling, and I think his words were, I don't know where to look. And I think he was bang on, Freddie. This looked like a race caller's nightmare. They were 7 or 8 wide. I know we hear this charge of the light brigade thrown into race calls. It's become a bit of a tired cliche, but this really was it. That was the race finish. The roughest in the race ended up winning it, Blue Suede Rocker. Tough one to call for Mick Darmacy. He did a good job on it.
Yeah, look, they're always tough and challenging, and we often get them here sometimes. They fan right across the track, and you're going, well, where do I look? And you try to anticipate best you can. And to be fair with Mick, Cowra being a smaller track, and where he calls from is actually set back from the harness track. So he's even got a more narrow perspective. It's a really difficult job when you've got a smaller track and you're away from them. And he handled it with the usual aplomb and a rough result, but they're never easy. You're sort of in your head, you're hoping they spread out, and
he was still struggling after the Parramatta loss, though, wasn't he?
Well, probably, yeah, no, but the professional that he is, he realised they've got another chance, and he knuckled down to the Cowra job.
You've had a week over yours.
No, I've had 2 days. I don't know how I'm going to go today.
I tell you, we mentioned before the Mitch Turnbull one by 41 metres. It actually came straight after that, so we saw the polar opposites of what a race can finish. Yeah. Jess, you saw some pretty good stuff this week yourself?
Yeah, there was a really good highlight here on Saturday night with the winner of Unfazed in Heat 4 of the Carousel. Charlie Pollicina, who trains, his wife Lisa and daughter Kristen were also on course, and unfortunately his son Tim couldn't be here, so for the presentation they got him up on video call and actually held the phone up for the photo, so that was a really special win for the family.
Those moments you ask, with my job, what's the highlights? It's those moments, because there was tears, there was emotion. And just, I think the significance of the win, and the family involvement.
Yeah, good. Charlie's done a great job with that horse. He took a little bit of time to find his feet when he arrived and was racing here, but now he just really loves the big track.
Yeah, good's that. Hey, you saw a pretty good one with Sir Simon and the connections and how that then flowed on through the week, Freddie.
Yeah, well, Sir Simon last week for Jake Bagini, but Clayton Baguni. His younger brother landed his first winner yesterday at Newcastle, and both boys are the product of the Penrith Mini Trot Club, and yet another situation where the Mini Trots are producing these really super talent. We talk about, you mentioned Grace Panella earlier, the Baguni boys. You've got Nathan Zerub came through the Mini Trots, and through Chris Geary, all those decent drivers. Yep. Cam Hart, of course, you mentioned he'll be
Robbie.
a superstar. Robbie Morris, just incredible. And, it just shows you the worth of those Mini Trot races that we have. They learn their capacity to handle a horse, albeit a pony, but then they transition through that passion. And Mini Trots, they're very, very popular.
We had the Weekender.
Yeah.
The Sydney Weekender was here the other day, and I don't know if we're going to touch on it later, but their focus was on the Mini Trots. That's Sunday week, I think they're showing that.
It'll be going to air on
7
Channel
May
7.
Or one of the
Yep.
Channel 7.
Yeah.
And their focus on the Mini Trotters.
It was brilliant. Yeah.
All the kids got a day off
Yeah,
school, which was great.
they were here while we were doing the publicity shoot
That's
last
right.
Tuesday, weren't they? And all sort of line up just behind us where we're sitting right now at Menangle. And, the smiles on those kids, but, a lot of them are a bit sort of nonplussed. Long may that live, that when the TV cameras are in front of them, they can just open up and tell their story. It's fantastic to see so many kids there, and harness racing families, the McCarthys, the Morrises, you name them, they're all there, and it was a good exhibition of the future of our sport and our industry.
Well, I always say they are the future of the sport. They are the future of our industry, because so many have come through those ranks. Even in the 13 years I've been back calling harness racing, so many of the kids that I was calling in Mini Trots when I first came back are now driving the real McCoy with great success.
But I think it's a pathway for future families that actually haven't grown up around horses. How do you get involved in this sport? Well, as a pathway, especially for the kids.
The Grimers, there's another one that just sprung to mind. They're doing great things.
There's an opportunity, and it's going to get a great expo, I suppose, there on Sunday week on Channel 7.
Absolutely. Right, Wano, thanks for joining us on the show. I think a lot
Coming
of people...
off the bench. Coming off the bench.
Yeah, but
I was used to that. I was used to that.
I think a lot of people see you you're the guy down there on the track on a Tuesday and a Saturday night metro meeting, and you're probably just there. But I don't think we've probably ever really explored as to what is your job. If you could give us that snapshot of what exactly is your job, and what's the role and responsibility of you at a race meeting?
Go back to 2004. I remember I had my job interview with John Dumacy, who was the CEO of Harold Park, New South Wales Harness Racing Club back then, who's now the CEO of Harness Racing New South Wales. I still remember the sheet he gave us, and it was about 3 pages long. And at the bottom of it, it said hours of work. It said up to 80 hours. And I still remember going, I can't... I didn't say it, but in my mind was going, I can't do this. You just can't do this. That's 3 weeks' work in a week. So there's a lot of different roles, but I suppose one of my major roles is putting the programs together. So what people see, and that's how I explain it to, just say I'm sitting in a club or a pub and someone says, what do you do? I said, see that up on TV? I provide that. So I do the race that's probably where I start, is doing your race programs, making sure that there's a progression from... when you do a program, you look at feature races, but what's the opportunities for those horses leading into those races? You look at your programs. I've always looked at it as if I had a horse. Okay, if I've got a 3-year-old filly, what's my opportunities coming up in the next month where I can race that? So you've got to put yourself outside your job and just pretend you're an owner or a trainer and see what opportunities. And you might say, I've got a maiden, I've got a 70 rater, what's the opportunities? I like a longer distance. Have I got any of those opportunities? So doing a program's just not a black and white, there you go. There's a bit of thought process, and that can be 12 months in advance sometimes, looking at your programs for those feature races. So that's something I do. Look, the rosters, making sure all the staff are here, the welfare of the staff. A really important job here is the welfare for the animals. Like when we built this place and we built those stables, once again, John, Bruce, myself, we had a real focus on making it as comfortable for the horses as possible. So that's a real big issue, making sure all that's looked after. Like we've got walking machines when they get here. There's 8 wash bays. We've got misting systems in there for when it gets hot. Unfortunately, we haven't got any flood mitigation. We've got to get that a little bit better. We've got to move that river. Got to move that river to the River there. So Yeah, that's a really important part of the job.
It's first class too. I mean, we've brought people through, over the last 18 months. We bring them through, and they want to see the stables, and they go in and wow's the sort of the immediate response that they get, and sort of say, "Wow, look at this! This is so much better than we expected." It really is
Well,
first
in the
class.
last couple of months, we've had someone from Western Australia. We've had a couple of people from Victoria, the guys from New Zealand, the Braveview Kelly people come and had a look.
Yep.
And they're just blown away by it. They go, wow, that looks after
It's
everything.
kind of the blueprint for how a racetrack should look with horse welfare paramount.
I know the Victorians love coming up here, like with the stabling and stuff like that. So,
Well, I tell you what, your job's not without challenges. We saw that, probably manifest itself at the absolute extreme at the Miracle Mile earlier this year.
I seen I got a little bit of coverage.
You're forever a meme running down the track in. Freddie had a challenge on his own hands, sitting up in the box and trying to navigate through some of that rain and tell the viewers out there what was going on. But you had to do track inspections out there in it. Is that as challenging a night as you've had in the job?
Oh, yeah, definitely, because it's the impact of just not what was happening. And I know when we had Sky Thoroughbred Central here, they were loving it. Like, they were saying, this is live TV. We don't usually get this sort of stuff. And they absolutely, I remember Haley Adam and that were going, this is great TV. I'm going, it's not so good, out there on the track. They're going, no, it's really entertaining. But you have to think about the impact it had on those horses. Those horses are primed for that minute at 9:40 to go.
Yep.
And 15 minutes before the race is scheduled, you get a downpour like that, they're still ready to go. You're living in hope, but then you start seeing the corrugations that were coming across the track. This storm that was supposed to move through just decided to
Plonked right over
hit the brakes and just sit on top of us. You're living in hope, but you know the impact. And then all of a sudden you start thinking of the logistics of, okay, these horses have been in retention barn. They've got to leave retention barn. They haven't had a fight. They're still all ready to go. What's the best method? Do we put it till tomorrow? Do we do it next week?
Particularly when you got
people
interstate horses here too. Yeah,
people are putting it. They're after an answer straight away, and you don't know. And you were involved with that, Paul. You're sort of going, "What's going on, Wonno? What's going on?" I'm really trying to get to that result.
Yep.
There was a discussion with Bruce. There was a discussion with Harness Racing New South Wales. What we're going to do. Also, Sky wanted to know. I had to go in and speak to the connections. I spoke to them first. I said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going next week. I know it's not what you want, but we've got to go next week."
Yeah.
I wanted to let them know first before it come over on air, so they were prepared for that when they did see it publicised.
I think it was a no-brainer in the end. There was no way they could have raced in that weather.
It was
But
as
as you
worse
said,
as
the
I was.
corrugations in the track were the main thing. How long did it take to get that track back to repair? Because you did, you had to engineer that, with the workers here, and they did an amazing job.
Yeah, I'm very, when I say the club's very lucky to have James Chang, Owen Mulligan, Darren Beavers, Warren Nash with a lot of years' experience. The time's going to come when that moves on, but between them, they've got about 120 years of track experience. So on Monday, it was still a little bit wet. We called the Tuesday off. Jimmy got on the track on the Tuesday and said, right, let's grade it up. He spent all day on the track. By the Wednesday, the Tuesday afternoon, we were doing track work. People couldn't believe the turnaround that the boys were able to achieve in such a short space of time. And by that Saturday, track was on fire again, and sub 50s, Miracle Miles, great races, and it was the right result.
And I know we're touching just on the racing itself, but the impact on this township here in this precinct and the nearby suburbs was just profound. I mean, I was out here a few days later doing some sort of video about, the flood impact and the amount of water and the damage. Oh my God.
Well,
just incredible.
The viaduct's gone under 4 times this year.
Yeah, the aerial shots are just
you send photos of
incredible.
People, like the entry, and it's 4 metres underwater.
Yep.
Fortunately, the water moves away pretty quick.
Yep.
But
it's hard to
significant
fathom.
damage.
Well, and then you've also got taking control of the biggest race that many see on our calendar, which is the Inter Dominion, and that was here in New South Wales earlier this year. Late last year. What's that like to have control of that race?
Yeah, it's a surreal feeling, if that makes sense. Over the years, I go home and I might sit down and have a cup of coffee or a beer with Dad,
Coffee, come on.
Okay, more
Tell
than
the
that.
truth.
Actually, port.
Port.
And as a kid, I remember, you get the trot guide for a Miracle Mile and have all the previous winners on the back page, and there'd be a big article on the front page about the Miracle Mile coming. It'd be in all the papers, the afternoon papers, the Daily Mirror, the Sun. They really feature on these races. And you sit back and go, wow, I helped pick that field, or I helped put that field together. I wrote the program for that. And it's a surreal moment because you grew up idolising that, and to be part of it, sometimes it's a pinch me moment, especially when you sit back and go, wow, and people come up and go, what a great night's racing. And I remember Sam Nadai asked us once, he goes, what's your high point? Is someone coming up at the end of a night and go, that was a really, really good race meeting. That was fantastic racing at its best. And that's where your enjoyment comes from.
Well, the rewarding any role, isn't it? It is achievement and keeping people happy and knowing that you've succeeded. And I think we can certainly say that. Mate, probably all skills picked up by scoring meat pies for the Illawarra.
There wasn't too many of those. I would have gone hungry if it was a pie for a try.
Tell them, what's the rugby league pedigree?
Oh, look, Dad he's a very good rugby league player in the local competition. Local competition was very strong in Illawarra.
We're talking Illawarra.
Illawarra competition.
Group 7?
No, it was always the Illawarra competition. Right. It was always a very strong competition. He played in an era of Western Suburbs. They're called the Red Devils down there. His coach was Don Parrish, who went on a kangaroo tour. Warren Ryan was in the centres. David Waite was on the wing. So there was 3 internationals in their team. But they were playing, like Paul Kempler had a couple of internationals. Dapto had a couple of internationals. Oscar Danielson and them sort of guys. Cliffy Watson played for Wollongong in the early 70s after his Cronulla stint. So it was a really hard competition back then. So he was lucky enough to play in that first grade competition. Went away captain coaching, so I was always, there's a few photos there of me being always the ball boy or the sand boy when it was real sand.
Back in the day,
not the kicking tees. I was always around the rugby league. It was the old man, a bit old school. It was, and you got to play in the front row. That's where you earn your bread and butter. So come through in the front row, played a bit of local junior rep stuff, and fortunately got to play a little bit of first grade with the Steelers and a club called Western Suburbs Magpies. Yeah,
so you would have rubbed shoulders with some pretty handy players out there on the field too.
Look, the Steelers days were good, but it was pre-Super League war. So I've spoken about it before. Like guys would drive their Gemini and their Commodore, and you'd park in with the general public, and you walk in with the general public, and people just pat you on the back and best of luck today. It was just different. Like you were working. I remember there was a great player called Chris Walsh. He was the club captain, but he'd show up. I still remember this of an afternoon. You get there at 5 o'clock, and he'd show up in his work gear.
That was the era, wasn't it?
Everyone was working.
You worked, and then footy was a secondary income.
Paul McGregor, everyone was working. Wishy, Russo, everyone had jobs. So you do your job and whatever it was, and you go to training that afternoon. And what was the saying? It was practice hard, play hard, and party hard. But don't get them in the wrong order.
Must be a bubblegum card out there somewhere with your mug on it.
Scanlon's footy card.
Hey, how good were they?
They were good.
You could smell them.
Loved them.
You could smell them. So,
the old Scanlon's, David Wonson.
Probably got a lot of good friends.
Collector's item.
You'd have kids coming up.
Did you have hair? Did you have hair? There was hair. Look out.
Kids would have been coming up asking for autographs, wouldn't they?
Hey, we did. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You
What's
did
that like?
You do. Yeah, you sort of, once again, it's a surreal moment. You go, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Look, and I'm probably giving away a few secrets. I was Chris Walsh a couple of times. That was more so after the football.
Was that after a party?
After a game, yeah, Chris Walsh.
Some kids done show and tell, telling them they met Chris Walsh.
Chris Walsh did tell a good story once. He said a lady come up and asked him who he was, and he goes, "Look, I'm Chris Walsh." She goes, "No, you're not." "Yeah, I'm Chris Walsh." She goes, "No, that's Chris Walsh over there."
Pointed to you.
Straight to me.
Pointed to you.
Oh, very good, Wano. It's look, we could talk forever about your background and what led you to this role, but the reality is you do it very well. We're very lucky to have you running the show, particularly on a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Saturday. Sorry, but it's everything in between that people don't see that I think we should tip our hat to. It's a well-oiled machine here at Club Menangle and Tabcorp Park Menangle on a Tuesday and Saturday, and the racing stands up and speaks for itself. But Doesn't
Appreciate
happen
it, mate.
without
Thank
good people doing the job. Freddie, just big week ahead, isn't it?
Well, we got the carousel. That's one of the highlights here this Saturday, and we see Port-au-Prince battle again with Heaven on High, some talent in Black Onyx.
Black Onyx, Tay, Unfazed. The list just goes on.
Yeah,
It's a very
Unfazed.
quality field, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, where are we? I mean, obviously you've got you got skin in the game with this one, Freddie. But who have you got to beat? If you're framing a market,
Yeah, look, I was impressed with the ones that you just mentioned, Tay. One thing about the Port-au-Prince win, his time, and I know we can't pay too much attention to times over 2300 necessarily, but his win was a second quicker than Tay and up to 5 seconds quicker than Black Onyx. They went a 48 lead and they come home in 26, I think it was 26-6 or something like that. So, look, Port-au-Prince, I think, is going to be very tough to beat from barrier one with the preferential draw. It suits those two horses. But Tay, I think, is a mare going places, and I think Unfazed just loves racing here. So they're the ones I think to beat.
the market really liked Tay last week.
Yeah.
So
Look,
clearly,
absolutely.
there's something
absolutely.
there.
She's talented, and I know she was beaten by some. Oh, look, Braveview Kelly beat. And Town Echo beat Tay home. Braveview Kelly, she is a real top-notch mare, and she'll progress,
Well, they're
no
open
doubt.
class mares, aren't they?
She'll
So
progress through to
she dipped a toe into open class
open
racing
class.
last
Yeah,
week.
100%. So I think Tay-Tay's run was pretty good. Stayed on well. Got pressure early. So, yeah, you got to respect her. She was good in the heat of the carousel. So it's going to be a great race. And as I said earlier, it's always been a good horse's race when you consider that, one of the names I threw up earlier, the Black Prince, won it 4 years ago, and we know where he's at now.
Yeah. It'd be a good story for Black Onyx, the McDowells. We do know that Grimo is very good at getting horses up for these big races. So, I think it's a great race. Obviously, the free-for-all is going to be something that I think is going to have the harness racing industry really on notice. We've got some elite going in that. I can't wait to see Expensive Ego return.
Yeah, I think all eyes will be on Expensive Ego. Of course, we've seen him trial here last Wednesday in 1:49 and 8.
At the trials.
At the trials, and that was an armchair drive for Luke. So really excited to see how he comes back. And, of course, we know he's got bigger targets towards the end of the season with the Inter-Dominion coming up.
Yeah, I think it's 2,300 this week, but the horse does relax. Like last week, he just seemed to do that first 1,400 so easy in the trial, didn't he? I know he got maybe a little bit tired at the end, because he only went 49.8. But he done it so easy. It was effortless.
Yep.
There was a horse.
Luke never moved.
There was a horse in that trial, though, went pretty good. He's in the first race here on Saturday night. I'm not tipping. I don't tip. But there was a horse that came second in that trial that touched the 150 mark himself, Focus Strides in the first race here in a 95 Raider. So...
Look out, you heard it here first. David Wonson. Ultra Orlando's turned into a bit of a notorious bridesmaid of late. Certainly a class horse that...
Been a great horse over the years. And
he's
we've
got a few
seen
Miracle Miles under his belt.
he's placed in the Cups in Victoria. He's just been a super little horse, and he just keeps, at the moment, bumping into one that's going a little bit better despite, he hasn't always in those placings had the best of runs, but and he was taken on in one of the races. So, but he's going to be competitive on Saturday for sure.
Nothing wrong with Bundoran's run behind the Black Prince the other night too. So
Very
that's a
gamely.
good
Great
race.
finish,
That. Yeah, the Trotters race. So I'm intrigued how Aldebaran Ravani really sort of progressed through the grades there last year, and then has probably tapered off a bit. But feels like it could be something else coming.
Trialled good the other day. Trialled strong. More like how she was when she first came across from the States. So, but I mentioned earlier we talked about Tough Monarch, and also dropped the hammers in that race. They're the two horses, equal with, I think it's Underworked and Cash and Flow and Don Boston. There's 5 of them that have won 26 races here, and dropped the hammer and Tough Monarch. If they happen to upset Aldebaran Ravani and score on Saturday, one of those two could be the single most winningest horse at this track since 2008.
Well, Lucky Lodge will roll out Sonny G. Interesting, Luke McCarthy's taken the drive on Majestic Simon, so it's a pretty good race.
There was a succession of 153s last year out in Baron Ravani did. When she won 4 or 5 in a row. And there was a couple of clashes with Funky Monkey where they were just jet. I think there was a 52 in there maybe even. So if she finds some of that form, they're going to be pretty hard to beat. She does save herself, but Jack's been the driver, so that's probably where that influence is.
Yeah, so that's where they've swapped.
Caligula's in that race too, and Caligula obviously went through the Inter-Dominion and Yeah, was it? So
First
I think
the
that's
other night, he'll be better.
Yeah, I think that's an intriguing race, that one. We've got some more Breeders' Challenge coming up. We've got Breeders' Challenge heats for the 2-year-old fillies tonight at Young. That I was there a couple of weeks ago, and that club is really excited about not only their Carnival of Cups, but the Breeders' Challenge program lobbing there. That should be a good event. We've got Breeders' Challenge heats for the 2-year-olds at Bathurst tomorrow night. Watch out for Better Be the Best for Nathan Turnbull, finalist in the Gold Crown. Didn't probably live up to the expectations there in that race, but you're not going to get rich if you back Better Be the Best, but probably the one to look out for in that race.
Paul, you don't go broke backing winners.
That is true, Freddie, but
no matter the price, any price a good price.
But I can tell you from first experience, you will if you get them wrong. So
that's right.
Newcastle, we got heats for the 2-year-olds at Newcastle on Friday. As I mentioned earlier, Cowra Carnival of Cups. And Goulburn's racing on Monday. They've got a heat of the Waratah, Jess, which is obviously the new initiative of the country series.
Yeah, Bono touched on this just before, and what a great series it is. It's fantastic to see those country-trained horses contest a heat, and then if they're lucky enough to qualify for the final, come here and race for $25,000 at Club Menangle. It's very special to always have them and their connections on course.
Yeah, plenty to look forward to. Bono, you tipped us into one before with Focus Stride. Anything from you, Freddie?
I was taken with the run, going back to that Port-au-Prince win, beating Heaven on High. Black Hawk Joe's run was superb, I thought. They got home in really quick time, and it was finishing on running through the line after a bit of a checkered passage. And I think Black Hawk Joe, it's an emergency in the carousel. Speaking to Rick Alchin, he said he hopes he gets a run because the horse is going really well. But wherever you see it pop up, Black Hawk Joe, he loves the track here, and I think he's going well enough to follow.
Yeah. Okay, Jess?
Mine was in the first race from Saturday night, Yarny. I thought he got home in some really quick last 2 sectionals, and he's trained by Jack Train and was driven by Amanda on that occasion, but I think he's one to follow into the future.
Well, you've got a big race afternoon of calling, Freddie, here at Menangle. Good program this afternoon. Wano, you got to steer the ship, and Jess, you'll be down there trackside, and me, I'll just be... I don't know what I'll be doing.
I can find you something to do.
I'll just be trying to make sure the podcast is right for next week. Right. Speaking of next week, we will be back next week. This is episode 1 of the Sprint Lane. Exciting. Thank you, everyone who's sat in on the panel. Wano, thanks for your time on the panel. As I said, we could have talked forever about the massive contribution you make to this sport, and it's forever underestimated, I think. So to everyone out there who's tuned in on the Facebook stream, I can see that there's people there. Thank you for that. Please continue to tune in, and if you've got questions that you want to fire in for our guests, we can address them as the show goes on, but the podcast will be available wherever you get your podcasts, and long may it continue to grow. So thanks for tuning into the Sprint Lane, and we'll be back next week. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.